When you die, or when we die, or when I die, I will leave this physical body, and as explained by many near-death experiencers, we usually see a bright light. But according to other traditions, like the American native traditions, we are advised not to rush to that light, and also that we turn around and wait, because it may be a trap. Let's look at after-death paradigms. Paradigm is a way reality is interpreted based on assumptions, values, and methods. And these shape the approach that we have to solving problems and issues and matters of life, especially when it comes to death. We know that a paradigm is generally a fixed and rigid premise and a way of thinking, and also that a framework is more specific and flexible. Our paradigm here is that death is not the end of consciousness, vis-a-vis those that say death is the end of consciousness. We want to look at various aspects of these paradigms, like the afterlife, bliss, heaven and hell, and the idea that there is nothing really that happens, and also that you are going to be reincarnated many times. There are certain truths, there are certain lies, there are certain things that we do not know, and some things that we know in our after-death paradigm. This could be shocking to many, and this could also be unrealized by millions who are facing their end of life, sudden or instant moments of dying or death, and those that are committing suicide, not knowing that they are being trapped. There are possible afterlife and death deceptions. The one that we've already illustrated is that which we are against, which is that death is the end of consciousness. And then we say death is not the end of consciousness, because this consciousness, when you die, we understand from various interaction with our ancestors, that is a reality. There's also teachings about paradise and going to heaven and also going to hell. All these are possibilities that we have to understand, things that we have to know before we die. Specifically, the concept of reincarnation, which we believe has a lot to do with our misunderstanding of a post-death or after-death life cycle. The idea that life is a cycle of life, death, and rebirth causes us to stop and ask if it's not a trap, because our free will has to give us a choice to exit that cycle which we think occurs. Then there is the issue of the gods that comes to take your soul. It's another paradigm that we need to look at and think and consider very seriously. Which gods? Are these the real gods that must take care of my soul? Those that are committing suicide and those that are in a reckless living, we have to ask them why they have that spirit or orientation in their thinking. We know that all such souls and have already given up any possible after-death paradigms that could be advantageous to their soul or consciousness, and that they've been deceived because they have no rights that they can retain if they sell their soul to the devil, if they allow the death angel to take hold, if they allow witches and demons to take charge of their current life today. Let's look at the concept of light. When we leave our physical bodies, we are told that there is usually a bright light, but the concept of light symbolizing God, the spirit, or reincarnation is a frightful concept, in that it is used to prepare your individual perception into a cycle of life and death with a limit of light, because light is an electromagnetic phenomenon with a high potential for being deceptive, for being used as a simulation, because the speed of light becomes the limit and eventually can trap you within this universe, as illustrated with in this scientific diagram, according to the paradigms that we are understanding and that have grown up and have come up from empirical science, theoretical science, computational science, and data-driven science, and now quantum science. All what we know, all what we need to think of is about the moths and life and the light. So when you look at this image here, and you see that there is a light that is used to portray a savior like Jesus, and that is a trap that is trapping people back into reincarnation or into something else. Think about the moth, the symbolism, how we trap moths when they come to light. It is actually that we are trapping them. This matrix of reincarnation, according to many writers, many researchers, many people that are spiritually awakened, they realize that reincarnation or anything that involves the light is actually a trap that is taking you back into this cycle of life, on and on, round and round again, for a purpose and for a goal. And they explain and illustrate and demonstrate the why, the hows, and the who's in this cycle. That's what we are looking at, and we are seeing the image here. There are so many informational systems in our current life paradigm as we exist on earth today. Scientific education is a paradigm on its own, which denies that you have a soul, that you evolved from something else, from an amoeba, single cell amoeba, and they don't want you to ask why or where that amoeba came from, or where the Big Bang came from. Same thing with artificial intelligence, that is creating another paradigm in which your life is going to be controlled by an artificial intelligent robot or system. We are coming from the religions of boxes, which are the boxes that we say, and we were teaching that you need to think out of. And these are religious boxes: Judaism, Islam, Christianity, every other religion. So you need to understand that these systems that are illustrated here are here to condition you in preparation of your after death paradigm, and they will impact you negatively if you allow them to curtail, stop, and place limits to the decision making that you make in the afterlife. So before we die and leave our physical bodies here on earth, what other paradigms must we have appreciated or understood? The first and primary one for all of us is the ancestralization paradigm. In other words, if you read our book, Free from God, you realize that we speak of and write about you asking your righteous ancestors. We don't say ancestors. A lot of people just group ancestors together and teach you to worship, to venerate, to know your ancestors. We do not teach that as Marifado. We teach that they are revered ancestors. And these revered ancestors are the ones that have been righteous and made righteous by funeral rites. And other ancestors who did not make it still could affect and impact your life if you invite them to come into your life. And as long as they are not ancestralized, they then sent you into a trap that you can never leave this dimension of the earth freely or willingly, or the ability to do that. These are trapped ancestors that are trapped by many other forces. And the light, as far as we have defined it here, is a very dangerous aspect of the afterlife because it limits you within a certain dimension. So if you read the book of 1 John 1:5, it says God is light. And we know which God they are talking about. It's not the real creator. Also, Allah, we know, is El, is not the real creator. I say Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. We do not follow this Allah. And then the Torah is light. Proverbs 6:23, for the mitzvah, which is Torah, is a light. We know what light is and the limitations of light. Therefore, we are aware and we are careful of that. So let's be aware of false prophets and those our ancestors did not approve to teach you. The best way to become a well-seated ancestor is to live in a kind and ethical ways while on the earth. Another is to live so that some people miss you when you go. If we have anchored in love and respect during life, there is no need to fear the journey after death. Dr. Daniel 4. This is Ma'ati Ubuntu teaching. So, understanding psychological and mental paradigms on after death possibilities significantly enriches our life experiences, and we want to share some unique paradigms that you might consider to recognize before you pass on. The first one is the growth mindset versus fixed mindset paradigm. The fixed mindset paradigm says that failure is the limit of my abilities. The growth mindset says failure is an opportunity to grow. Challenges help me to grow. I can learn to do anything I want. That's the attitude we need. I like to try new things. And the fixed paradigm says when I am frustrated, I give up. You need to remove that paradigm. The other paradigm that we need to know of is the power of perception and reality paradigm, as well as consciousness, because what you must accept is that your consciousness must be greater than your perception. And there is no need to argue about all things in life. All you need is to take the reality and the subjective reality that shapes your individual perception, experience, and a belief. You must understand the paradigm that allows you to appreciate diverse perspectives and question every assumption that you have made, and comprehend that there can be multiple truths in different contexts. But at the end of the day, that death is not the end of it all. That is a fact. So let's look at the paradigm of cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are systematic patterns of deviation from rationality, so-called, that influences your decision making and judgments today. Confirmation bias, loss aversion, gambler's fallacy, availability cascade, framing effect, bandwagon or group psychology, Kruger effect. All these paradigms make individuals able to make informed decisions if they understand these paradigms and why certain beliefs and perceptions can persist despite evidence to the contrary. You must be able to do this so that you can know that you are a human being before you die, and that you need to be prepared to face challenges, fines, and the traps. You must know this before you die, because your current life must be engaged in your growth so that you become unbreakable and consider life as a learning tool that you want to break out of, so that you can have strong resolve when you pass on, to notice unwarranted paradigm traps like bright lights, like unknown ancestors, like demanding gods that are commanding you and giving you instructions. That is when you have already passed on. But if you believe you don't have a soul, that these are not important to you, then you need to turn away and far from such, and perhaps wait and refuse. Have that resolve to refuse, so that you know you are destined to go to the chasm or to touch the chasm, instead of walking right into that light or follow the instructions of that date or that guide or that spirit or that ancestor. You have to question so that you can be able to detect the trap. There are basically only three questions that you can ask, whether it's a guide, whether it's a god, whether it's an ancestor. If you are interested in asking these questions so that you can be aware of death traps and the evil spirits or trapping or projected ancestors that are there to take your soul before death, if you are interested in that, you can send us an email on join@marifado.com, and then we can be able to share those questions with you. This is very, very important. And if you feel, yes, I need these systems, I need to know more about all this matter of death, after death paradigms, do not hesitate again to get in touch with us by sending us an email on join@marifado.com. Your manager Topi, Priest Rabbi Elem Kunikerim Jaganja says, yes, there is life after death, there is an afterlife, but you need to understand that that afterlife is always under threat, because life after death and what happens when you die depends on the spiritual zone and the spiritual events and spiritual entities that you encounter the moment when you die. I'm a new. Stay well, stay cool, be ready, do not have any fear.